Dr. Gigi Sabat, and you're listening to the Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Jennifer Watson. Welcome to the show.
It is so good to see you, Dr. Gigi, and I can't wait to get in our conversation.
Can you tell us a little bit more about you and where are you from?
Oh my gosh. So I am from a little small town in Montana, Billings, Montana. I am a mountain girl, out west girl, but the Lord has brought me into so many different spaces over the years, and I have loved it. I now currently live on the East Coast in South Carolina, but no matter where I go, God has allowed me to use my gifts humbly to impact the world. So I'm just excited to be here and just be on your show and provide value however I can.
Likewise, it's such an honor. Tell us a little bit more about your education and fitness background.
Yeah, I've said this a lot. I know when we've had just other conversations, Gigi, but I have been a high performer my entire life, and I always wanted to reach my highest potential in anything I was going toward. And it started when I was in sports and athletics. I ended up becoming a two-time All-American at University of Wisconsin-Madison. So that is where I started really cultivating high performance, but also leadership. I was a team captain, learning how to go through adversity on and off the field, so to speak, learning how to balance life stressors with my work, AKA being an athlete. And I took a lot of those high performance skill sets and leadership roles into PT school, where I got a master's degree in physical therapy and ultimately started two separate brick and mortar holistic physical therapy practices where I got a chance to really support people from a mind and body and soul perspective. And partially why I did that is my own journey as a high performer. I struggled. And I know the last time I was with you, we talked a little bit about my depression history, my suicidal ideation that I went through the college years in the background and even into the early years of my PT practice before I started realizing that I needed to treat me as a whole and ultimately my clients as a whole. And I've spent 25 years in the wellness industry helping people optimize performance, navigate chronic pain, and deal also with mental health. And in the last 5 years is when I finally transitioned into coaching, consulting, and speaking because I felt it was really on my heart from God to serve the world, not only a different capacity, but a bigger capacity, that some of my knowledge, my expertise, my journey on really leading and performing through the lens of wellness, through a different, healthier lens, was really going to help a lot of high level leaders. So that's now what I do. I get to speak on several major stages. I've had an honor to be on so many podcasts like yours and 2 TEDx stages and just share some of my knowledge humbly. So I'm so excited to be here and even share some of that today, Gigi.
Amazing. Likewise. And thank you for being transparent in regards to your depression and suicide. Let's talk about the suicide as well for a little bit here. So at what point did you decide not to end your life?
Yeah, I think, I'm always a big believer that, coincidences don't happen, Gigi, and I believe there are synchronicity moments, especially even during our darkest moment. And I had a lot of suicidal ideation. I never actually started going through with it, but a lot of suicidal ideation. I remember I was sitting down literally on the floor, like writing the date that was a couple months away that I would take my life. That I was writing the date, and literally I got a call from my mom. She was just checking in. I was never even telling anybody about what I was dealing with, the background, the pain, the anguish, the suffering. And my mom just called just to say, hey. And I picked it up. And why I picked it up, who knows? And I just picked it up. And I remember her asking me like, hey, how are you doing? Just really light, casual. And I remember I took a deep breath and I said, Mom, not well. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And then that's when I started unfolding some of the background things that were happening through college and then now in PT school. And she always knew that I was more kind of like a emotional, melancholy person. Like my mom, I got that a little bit from her, but she had never known quite the depths of the suffering. And from that moment when we take our darkness and take it into the light, that's when I started the healing, not only to share it with people and not feel that it would be a taboo subject that would make me weaker as a performer, as a leader, but actually make me stronger and be connected more vulnerably to the people that were on my team, but also the people that I was treating, my friends in my life that actually got to know me for who I really was. So it started a healing process of me researching things in holistic medicine and sharing with other people that actually were secretly behind the scenes as well, that were high performers and professional, successful people on the outside like me that were really struggling on the inside, and allowed them to come forward. So I'm such a big believer, Gigi. I know you are too. When you have that act of courage, just step in, take a deep breath and share. your scariest moment with just even one person. It starts a domino effect. And it started me to start being a performer, a leader, a master of my impact in a more authentic way and not hiding behind the scenes. It was exhausting. Like, no matter how successful I was out here, now it was starting to self implode because it was getting too hard. When I started really just being honest, it's amazing the respect that people started having for me more because I was actually being me. I mean, people were actually could tell that there was something off, but I was just covering it up, and just going down that space led to so many more opportunities for me, even beyond my successes I already had, but they came from a place that was really me. And I'm such a big believer, no matter who I work with, Gigi, no matter what their goals they want to attain as that high performer influencer and the way they want to impact the world for good, if I can just help them be more of themselves a majority of the day, I've won. Because I feel when you're really in your true essence of yourself, the dark and the light, and allowing people to learn from that, you're a powerhouse. You become unstoppable. It's when you pull back from that is when, I feel Satan, devil, the evil forces can take over and start pulling you into a space that is never going to give you glory nor the glory for others as well. So to be in a space that I can share that with people, and if you are in that space right now, everybody, I know a lot of people I'm working with right now are in chaos, Gigi, just with what's going on in the world, what's going on in their own turmoil in their life. And if you're there, everyone, know that there's someone here. If it's Gigi, if it's only me, it doesn't matter. Call one person, because I'm going to tell you right now, that's just the act of courage that you often will need to shift it around, because we need you. We need you. We need you in this world. There's no one like you. And I'm just honored to be on here. If that's the only thing we talk about, Gigi, is that someone decides not to do that and move into a space to give more powerfully to the world.
That's right. Hold on. And now, what message do you have for an individual who's currently facing depression right now and they're ready to give up?
Yeah, man alive. You know, ironically, a lot of the high performers and these big leaders I've worked with have actually been there, Gigi. So in those that are not the big leaders and just are doing their thing and living their life, it doesn't matter. It comes in all forms. And I will say this one thing: if there's anything that you can hold on to, if there's one little sliver of light, if there's one little sliver of hope, if there's any of that cracking through for you, lean into it. And when I say that, whether it be the sunlight when you go on a walk around your apartment, if that's all you can do right now, if it's just making your bed because that feels like there's something you can control that you're doing and it looks nice in your room. You guys, that's actually where I started. I just started doing small things that I could control, that made me feel like I was contributing, even if it was only in my world. So if you have that sliver of hope, if you have, like, I do believe somewhere deep, 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 deep down, which a lot of you on, I know you do, or you wouldn't be listening to this right now. Know that just one thing you do a day that's for you, that's good and contributing, whether it's making your bed, going on that walk around your apartment complex, that's contributing. And that's where you start. Hold on to that sliver, and then also reach out to one person that you trust. And if you don't have someone you can trust, call. And if you're at that point that doesn't even work, yes, you guys, there's many hotlines out there that you can talk to a counselor that is there that can kind of navigate you through this, because there is a perspective shift that can happen as you start doing these small things. Hope can be just a crack, you guys, but it carries so much power. It's like a firecracker, right?
Right.
Just a little spark, even if it's just small, you guys. Everyone I've worked with, Gigi, I've always found that even if they want to go down that road and take their life, there is this small crack. And if someone just meets them there, or they just do one thing, and then all of a sudden they do another thing, you guys, that does work. I'm a living example of this. I went from writing something on a wall of when I was going to take my life in 2 months. I literally, you guys, I planned it so much. I wanted to do it after tax season because I thought it'd be easier and less paperwork for my family. And I'm not kidding you when I say this. That's a sick brain. That obviously I was at a space, like, that's how bad it was. And I'm trying to be good to my family. I was worried about the paperwork afterwards. Like, that's how I was thinking. You guys, if I can do that and crawl from that and heal my brain. I get interviewed all the time, Gigi, on podcasts, and people ask me all the time, what is your number one success? What do you do for success? I'm like, first and foremost, let's just get it out there. My biggest success is healing my body, my soul, and my brain to step out of the dark into like one tiny step at a time. And all of a sudden it was 20 steps. And all of a sudden I was up to 14, and all of a sudden I'm here talking to people that hopefully are listening. If you're in that spot, that was me. And you can shift it by just that little spark, one step, and reach out. One step and reach out. And if you don't have someone, that is okay, my friend, that you don't feel safe with, talk to me, talk to Gigi, reach out to us. Because I'm telling you, I have the bandwidth for that. I have the love for that. I have the support for that. You're not alone. You're not less than. You're not, shouldn't be in shame of that. A lot of us have experienced this for a variety of capacities. Just know that there's more to you than your pain right now and what you're feeling. And if there's anything else I could say with that, that is what I would say to them.
That's right. One step and reach out, and hope. Hope truly matters.
Yes.
Now, you are a high performance or a high performer, some would say, right? Now, that also requires a level of a mindset, right? Resilient mindset. Let's talk a little about performance and resilience.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about performance.
Yes. So to me, performance and resilience are so tied together. And we'll get into resilience in just a second, everybody, because I did do a second TEDx this past year in 2024 on the chemistry of resilience. And it is very tied to performance. And the reason why I say that, we live, at least in the American culture. I can't speak for other countries, but I know this country very well because I've been in it for how many years now. And I'm telling you, the high performance culture that we're still breaking the pattern of this is this desire or need. A lot of this is cultural. Some of it is from things we've learned in our families. Some is trauma based, but we come from this culture of high performance equals burn yourself to the ground. High performance equals be the martyr, feel miserable, make sure everything's successful outside of you, but it has to come to the sacrifice of you. High performance comes to working 80 hours a day and not liking your life for the cause, quote unquote. And I have to say, I absolutely disagree with that. Is being an entrepreneur, is being a performer that wants to be masterful at what they're trying to perform at, trying to impact in, yes, there's navigations of determination, perseverance, resilience that we'll get into, and definitely that motive of always stepping up when you fail, and learning the lesson. But I'm going to tell you that, guys, this, the barest of its bones, if we can break free and rewire our brain and our body to align with ease and flow with our unique performance state. Yours is different than mine, Gigi, and what gets you in that state. I often talk about it. It is neuroscience in our body and our brain to get into a flow state that leads to peak performance for each of us. And guess what? It has nothing to do with working 80 hours. It has nothing to do with pushing so hard you physically and mentally start shutting down and breaking down. It has everything to do with understanding the chemistry and the communication of your body and what it's saying to you to do next, and how to also optimize it. There's things we can do during our day. I do this a lot in my coaching with a lot of my high performers wanting to get a lot done in the day or delegate to their team. And a lot of it is about doing less, but more potently, and learning how, I do this through my frameworks, learning how to optimize your brain and body to be in flow. You guys have all been there where you're like, what do you mean by flow, Jennifer? You know, where you have those days you're like, just time stands still and you're so in creative mode and you get so much done and time just collapses and you just feel so in your lane. It's kind of like a runner's high, right? That's not by accident, you guys. There's ways of doing this consistently in each of us individually and collectively for our team. And it doesn't require 80 hours a week and burning yourself to the ground and sacrificing yourself. When I first started, just backstory on performance, how I really started investigating this more is not only my practitioner background, because I optimized people's mind and body, but I remember when I first stepped out on my own with my first brick and mortar business, the first book I read was, guess what? The 4-Hour Work Week. And this book is filled with a lot of different points, but he talked about a little bit about the performance state of the mind body, that it's just better with working less, but more potently versus extended long hours that we have in this society tendency to do. So I actually started my entrepreneurship in this mindset of my goal is to be high performing, but very potent and very refined and really master the craft, and that my team also does the same. And I'm telling you, Gigi, the more I've researched this and studied this, the more I realize we as entrepreneurs, yes, we are navigating things, are going to experience problems and hurdles that are going to require a bigger bandwidth and resilience of us, but it doesn't require this day in and day out of exhaustion that we've been told performance is. Performance mastery into what you uniquely give to the world, Gigi, has nothing to do with burning yourself to the ground. When you learn how the mind and body optimize and works well in its most peak performance, you can actually do this day in, day out. Even, you guys, even when you have hurdles come at you, even when you have 20 things in a day, what I get done in a day now versus what I could get done in 10 years ago, it's a landslide difference. And I'm older, you guys, it seems like my energy would be lower, but it's because I've learned how to tap into this and be in my peak performance, just like an athlete, you guys. I try to use those athletic examples because that's tangible, right? We think about all of us have a unique way to get to our peak performance and get ready for a race or get ready for an event, right? Your mind and body together in other aspects, including leading a business, including dealing with the day in, day outs of balancing your business with family. There's a balance to that in your body. And when you learn to optimize it, game over. You actually become a lot more powerful in what you do. And it does not require you to burn yourself to the ground.
Wow, very powerful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Now, let's talk a little bit more about leadership. What does leadership mean to you? And what if an individual does not feel like a leader? They feel weak and maybe even a warrior. They don't even feel like a warrior. What message do you have for that individual?
Well, here's the deal. So at the barest of bones, everybody, we are leaders to ourselves. So all of us are leaders of some sort. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom and you're leading your family, and that's what you do. By the way, I'm an identical twin sister. That's what she did. Majority of her life, she wasn't a business entrepreneur like me. Or you're leading an organization. At the barest of bones, we all have to be able to lead ourselves well, right? So for me, that is the basis for all of us. But I'm going to tell you right now, everyone, I'm going to challenge the idea that all of us are necessarily leaders meant to lead big companies. But it doesn't mean that you're not leading your specific part on the team. So I want to be really specific on that. Everybody at the barest bone are leading themselves in a particular contribution to the world. Are you going to be the big influencer leader for a big company? Not necessarily if it's not something that's aligned for you. But I'll say this to all my entrepreneurs and influences and leaders that are leading impacts and leading teams. I believe the true barest bone of a leader is twofold. One, that you are leading in such a way that you're teaching everyone on your team to do it as well. To lead, if nothing else, themselves well, and then their part and contribution in something bigger than you. And what I mean by that is the girl that bought my PT practice when I moved in coaching consulting. I remember when I interviewed her for the job, I said to her, I'm like, do you want to have your own business someday? She looked at me like, oh my gosh, she's, hire me. She's like, well, what can I do? I'm like, great. I'm like, then you're on the right team. And she just looked at me funny. And this is why I say this, you guys. My job, if I'm doing my job as a leader, I'm taking whatever your desire is that's on this team in the current role you're in, and whatever your vision is for the future, that I build you up enough that you go and do it. Whether it's staying with me or building your own practice, then I've done my job. At its barest bone, to me, leadership is teaching others around you and entrepreneurs, your team, to be leaders and do the same. Whether it be staying with you or moving on and doing something of their own, then I know I've done my job. The second component of leadership, I truly believe it's impartially because I've been there and I've seen the value of this. If you as a leader can, during your deepest and darkest moments, and I just shared one of mine, step into a room of other leaders that you highly respect and highly value, look them straight in the eye, and with dignity and grace, ask. Ask and state your case for support in need. And I truly believe that's probably the biggest thing you can do as a leader, because we all as leaders have had our dark and light. And if you can show that to your team, to the people that care about you the most, your influence will go well beyond the years that you are on this earth. And I actually truly believe that. So for me, at its barest bone, is leadership is really twofold. Is that you're teaching everybody that you're surrounded with to be leaders of themselves, and how that ends up, whether it be with you or far after you. And two, that at your darkest moment, you can step in a room and show what you need in dignity and grace. And I think that goes such a long way for so many people. And they will remember that far after you leave, over any accolades you give them or anything that you do for them in the company. When they see your rawness, they see your humanness, and they see your strength in looking at someone in the eye, in stating the struggle. Because I'm telling you guys, when I've done that over the years, my numbers skyrocketed, my business skyrocketed, my family skyrocketed, my wellness skyrocketed. I'm a living proof of that. So that's kind of a deep answer maybe for people hearing this, but that for my level is really what leadership is about, making other leaders, whether they stay with me or not, and go on their own, and really showing up in dignity and grace during your darkest moments and letting them see that.
I love it. Meet people where they are. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about post-traumatic growth. What does post-traumatic growth mean to you?
Yeah. So, you guys, so I've done quite a bit with somatic work. And if any of you know what somatic work is, it's really talking about things that we store in our body that are traumatic to us. And by the way, that's very subjective, everyone. Like what's traumatic for me and what's been in my life versus Gigi versus you, all of you that are listening. But anything that creates a trigger that happened in your past that you've held in your body, and then what happens throughout your life, if something similar comes up, that trigger is brought up in you, and sometimes you can act in the same behavior, or it brings up similar feelings. It gives you a lot of pain. You hear a lot about this, like PTSD after military comeback from traumatic events, right? You've heard of more severe examples. You guys, maybe men and women that have been in abusive relationships, sexually abusive relationships. But those are the big things. But all of us have had traumas in our lives, so it's one of those things. Not trying to compare it to the big traumas or not. It's really just understanding that when you've experienced something in your life that you deem as traumatic, you hold it in your body, and until you learn to move it through, anything out within your life that you continue to experience that's similar to that, your brain remembers it and will bring up a similar pattern or a similar experience or a similar feeling. So when we talk about post-traumatic life and living it, is moving through these things that have accumulated, everyone, over the years that we've been a part of. And if they're behaviors and things that are not aligned with where we want to go with our highest self, our highest abundant self, our highest potential self, it's important that we move the trauma through our body, through the cells that it's been held in. And there's certain ways of doing that. I'm not fully certified in like somatic work, but I've done a lot of other things where I work with other people that have done that kind of work. So we together, between the performance, the resilience, as well as the somatic work, can really move someone through trauma so they can actually align their beliefs, their behaviors, the emotions where they actually want to go, versus rooted back to where it's been. And by the way, you guys, this is also can be generational. Things from our ancestors that we've carried through our bloodline, that can actually affect who we are as well. That can be broken as well. And there's different layers and frameworks for that. So post-trauma work is necessary to actually move into a space that allows the mind body to be in flow, to be in the flow state, to connect with people. Otherwise, you'll pull back into, I call it that old 6-year-old self. A lot of our traumas happen, you guys, and are imprinted between 0 and 6 in our adolescence years. The reason why is we're accelerated growth at these periods. So if things are happening to us that are good or bad, they're wired into our being. Our beliefs, our thoughts about the world and how we respond to it. The problem is, as children, we only have so many tools and we only perceive so much because we've never seen a lot of things yet. So we process it often in an abnormal way, and then we take it in as adults. I always say that a lot of times, us fighting with each other as adults is my 5-year-old self fighting with your 5-year-old self, Gigi, until we learn to heal a lot of that and then move through and actually have a more conscious relationship to lead profoundly each other and support each other in a more healthy way. But that type of work is necessary for any of us that have lived long enough. All of us have been through stuff, and we carry patterns into our life. So if we can move through that, you can get a life that's in flow, that can tap into this human machine that God gave us that's so brilliant, to be more resilient toward future things that happen, and also build up our capacity to do more even during hard times.
That's right. Thank you so much for explaining post-traumatic growth. And not just that, there's a book that's coming to mind here. It's a collaborative book that I wrote with friends, including my mom.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's called, thanks.
Yes.
Overcoming Heart Blocks, Inspiring Stories for Healing from Trauma.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You guys, I want to tell everyone here, like right now, I feel like the word trauma is thrown around because, we talk about it so much, and it's so pivotal, you guys. And I hope that if you have any questions on how I explained it, or even read Gigi's book, like really, sit with it and move through it. It can be a thrown out round word, just like leadership can be a thrown out round word. And I want to take it very seriously. I take leadership very seriously. I take people's traumas and what they're bringing to the table very seriously. So, when you're experiencing it, honor it. sit with it, reach out to people, find the tools, find me, find a book, find support to help you through it. And you guys, I'm not saying Google is a place to start, but that's a place to start too if you're starting to figure out some of this stuff. And then reaching out to me, finding books, finding support is key, because I'm telling you, when your body's holding on trauma, no matter how much high performers out there, remember what I told you about the traumatic performer that feels like they have to do 20 things a day and drill it in the ground. I can't tell any people I work with, Gigi. They're like, okay, give me the 20 things to break free of this, Jennifer. I'm like, you don't need 20 things. And with performance, remember, it's not about pushing in 20 things. It's about 2 or 3 things to break and rewire and allow your body to get in flow with ease. And that's also something I have to move a lot of my high performers through. It's a hard pattern to break, not only the trauma, but that you have to burn yourself to the ground, ironically, to break free of the trauma. Now, listen, hear what I just said. Like, we're trying to get rid of a trauma that's so anxiety and high stress for us, and we're burning ourselves to the ground to do it. So think about that, and that doesn't make sense, right? So how do we do it in flow, in a safety of the body? And I talk a lot about the nervous system on my TEDx, about resilience and how you can optimize resilience by making the nervous system feel safe. And that includes in trauma, moving trauma through so your nervous system actually feels safe in an environment that was similar to one that has been in the past where it was traumatized. Okay. This happens a lot in intimate relationships, you guys. This happens a lot in business relationships. So nervous system is key. This is where we hold the keys to our life, and we have to make sure it feels safe in the life that we're choosing. And that includes, you guys, not just trauma, but as leaders, when we're going to that next level and we're doing something different, we're growing our business or taking out the big loan or adding a new employee and it stretches us, our nervous system will retract because it's new. It's like, what are you doing? Don't do that, Gigi. That feels unsafe because it's not the same. And so a lot of the work we do is not just about post-trauma work. It's actually just rewiring the body to be okay with growth, just stretching it a little bit and pulling back in. There's a way that I work with people to really make sure that it's done in a way that feels good for them and safe. So it's this balance of, we want you to be in high performance mastery, living your fullest potential, but life gets lifey. And how do you do that and grow yourself, but also appreciate where you came from and heal that? So it's this healing and growing balance that is constantly happening. And I say this all the time, Gigi, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. To me, it's like the textbook for personal development, and it's going to trigger past traumas. It's going to trigger you of fears because you're growing your business. So when you can learn to balance this supportive healing and growth and really do it from a place that feels safe, and you're being supported by people like you, Gigi, and like me, and just collaborating with people so you can actually move it forward, that's my greatest joy, because you deserve that. You have one life. And we don't know how long it is, at least on this earth. I believe in the afterlife, you guys, and I believe in heaven. But I'm saying this one life that you have here, you were meant to be here for a reason, a specific reason at this time. And we want to make sure that you live that to your highest capacity.
That's right. Wow. And we spoke so much about healing and growth. I can't help but think about another collaborative book that I wrote with friends and my mom as well that I'd love to share here today. It's called Healing and Growth.
Yes. I love it. It's so amazing. This is why I love this conversation, because we talked about this before I hopped on the podcast with you, Gigi. Is I look at performance, I look at leadership, I look at resilience always through the lens of wellness. And a lot of it, you guys, is about healing. And I will say this, sometimes we get too stuck in healing, we get so focused on it, but there is a point of it. There's a point of healing, and then there's a point of growing. And what I just said, the balance of both, and there's needs for both. There's need for leadership and growth. There's a time needed for healing and opening up and being vulnerable about that. But being stuck too much in each one of those worlds can be dangerous, you guys. I've had people that get addicted to healing. They don't move anything in their business or in their life. I've had people just go in business, and they don't deal with things in the background that's limiting their capacity, not only on their business, but other things they want in life. So it's really understanding this balance, right, of flow between healing and growing. And it's one thing I even talked about and talk a lot about with my clients, even when I speak on resilience. Resilience, besides performance and leadership, is a love of mine to talk about. And I also believe that's spoken about wrong. It's like performance, where we think of resilience of just like barely making it, sucking it up, buttercup, during 2020, and just hope for the best and feel miserable until it's over, so to speak, right? I don't believe resilience is meant to be that way. I believe resilience is meant to actually allow us to rise during hard times, but you have to know, again, how to increase the capacity of your body to hold more, Like when I've learned to do it a healthy way, the number of trials or hurdles I go through in a week, I just kind of get right back in my lane and keep on trucking. Versus, 10 years ago when I didn't have the frameworks and the right resilience that was healthy. Now I have one that has a healthier resilience and bandwidth that can take on more trials, but it required me to learn to get resilient in a softer way. It's not, you guys always, resilience is about pushing through, but it's not about pushing through. And what I mean is pushing through and finding another way through the hurdle, but it doesn't require you to sacrifice your health and your wellness in tanking. So when I say that, yes, it will be hard during times where you need more resilience, when problems are coming up, but how you deal with in the background requires rest, intentionality, more like counseling support, like things to help you through that allows you to show up really powerfully during hard times and be more resilient. So for me, resilience is like performance. To me, I see it in a very different way. I don't believe it's just waiting for the storm to pass, barely keeping your head above water, and good job. I believe you can be a lot more than that, but it requires you to increase the bandwidth of your resilience by doing prep work, which I work with clients on all the time, doing hard stuff every day, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So when things happen, you can have a higher, healthier bandwidth and also be able to navigate things more in flow, even when crap is happening. You guys, I've had my share of crap too. I mean, from money loss to client loss to family loss to, I've been there too and wrapped around that tree, but I'm telling you, doing it in a way that's healthier, just like healthier performance, where there's more flow. Think about a storm, you guys, or if you're riding a wave, like in the ocean, I've surfed before. If you fight the wave, you fall, right?
That's
And a
right.
wave is adversity, you guys. What do? You jump on and you ride the wave. You guys, it's still hard. It's challenging, it's sporty, but you end up riding it, right? Resilience is no different. You guys, if you learn to look at the challenge as it's a challenge for growth and an opportunity to grow, you know what I say anymore? Like when something hits the fan, I had 5K taken out of my bank account erroneously like last fall. It was a fraud, okay? And I looked at my bank account. You know what I did? Good. I literally did that. I rewired right there in my brain. I'm like, well, this is a great lesson here. This is something I get to learn to communicate better with the person that I need to talk to solve this problem. It makes me learn to double down on security, on like all this stuff, you guys. And why could I do that? Because I prepped and primed myself in a healthy way to increase my capacity to be resilient during hard stuff and keep right on going. And allow me to not be stressed and stay in flow and not be under the water, but in a good state of my mind and body, even during a quote stressful time. I was in a healthy resilience. So that's what I mean by healthy resilience, you guys. It's like performance. You can be performing well and not be tanked. You can be resilient and go through a hard time and not be backdooring it every day and suffering for years, which a lot of people did 2020 and 2021. But I'm telling you guys, the ones that win this game called life understand how this works, because I'm going to tell you, around the next corner will be a problem, quote unquote, right? We all have them every day. When you learn to adapt this body in a healthy way to handle it and not just be above water, but ride the wave during hard times, game over. You become the problems, checkmate king. You know what I mean? Or queen, should I say? The queen has more power in the chest, right? But what I'm saying is that's the real beauty of it. So learning the mind-body brilliance and increasing your capacity of your nervous system to handle more drama, so to speak, is really going to help you do more than just stay above water as a resilient person. It's going to help you thrive and accelerate. You guys watch my TEDx. I talk about 3 actually tools to help you do that today and actually move in a place that feels good in your resilience versus it sucks to be resilient, but I'll wear the badge of honor.
Right. And ride the wave during tough times. Very powerful statement. And I've had the honor of watching your TEDx talk. Very powerful, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend watching it. And again, that's Jennifer Watson on TEDx. Now, Jennifer, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
Oh man. Walking with purpose and living a life of happiness.
Yes.
Man, find out who you are and do it on purpose. Find out who you are and do it on purpose. So much of our early lives, I have found with some of the greatest leaders I have met, Gigi, is we faked it. We did what other people said we should do. We did what people told us we were only capable of. We listen to the noise. We listen to everyone else. But I talk a lot about intuition in my frameworks, my coaching, and leading by your inner wisdom and voice. You guys, I believe in coaching. I believe in mentorship. I believe in good advice. But I'm going to say this, you guys, we live in a world, we know it, AI, social media, telling us all the time the next best thing, the thing that you should be, Gigi, the thing that I should be. And I spent so much of my life, and part of the reason why I had depression, doing and performing for something that I actually didn't want to do anymore. You want to live a high purpose life, everybody? You better get really super honest. Ask yourself this question right now, everybody. Sit in a room, get grounded, put your feet on the floor. Are you living your life or someone else's? It's time to get super, super honest with yourself about that. And if your immediate knee-jerk reaction is, no, I'm not living my life, I'm living someone else's, that's your first step. That's your first step to living your life of purpose and happiness. Because if that's your inner gut natural answer to say, then we need to make that happen where you're living your aligned purpose. There are a lot of people suffering silently behind the scenes like me because we're not living our purpose. We're not finding out who we are and doing it on purpose. So if that answer to that question, you guys, triggered you and you're like, no, I'm not, your first step this weekend is start exploring. Go play, go out in your environment, go meet with some new friends, find out what you like. If you have an idea, go do it this weekend. If you like to dance, go dance. If you like maybe thinking about opening up an art store, go try some art. Like, you guys start living your life. It will literally help you with your immunity. It'll help you with your energy. It'll help you connect better with people at work when you actually start doing things even outside of work right now that get you, your life just vibed up. I'm telling you guys, ask yourself that question. Are you living your life or are you living someone else's? And if you're not living yours, start exploring and playing and figure it out. Get a coach like me, get a coach like Gigi. I have frameworks to help people move through that transition more effectively, because a lot of us have been caught up in like, I'm successful, I've been performing, I've got the $500,000 home and the picket fence and the 2 kids and the dog and my nice car, and I hate my life. You know how many people I talk to that's their story, you guys? And by the way, I'm not dogging being married, having 2 kids, and a dog and a picket fence. What I'm saying is if you're living a life that just looks good to everyone else, but behind the scenes you're drinking, behind the scenes you're writing on a wall like I did, a date you want to check out, that's a sign. Find out who you are, live it on purpose, get support from me, from Gigi, from people you trust to move into the life you desire, because life is short. I've lost many close family members to different diseases and cancers over the years. And the number one thing they're always talking about the last month of their life, did I live the life I wanted to live? Did I do that thing I was scared of? Did I connect with the person, have the shaky conversation, even though I know I was going to be shaky? Did I take a bet on me and invest in a coach? Did I stand on that stage shaky, even though I was a bad speaker at first? Because I haven't done the things I've done by not taking chances on the things I wanted to do. I got into PT school when people said I couldn't get in. I became an All-American when people said it was going to be way too hard. I started my first PT practice in the crash of 2008 when they said I was all going to fail, and it made 6 figures that year. I stepped into coaching and speaking, and they said I would never speak because I had a stutter as a kid, and they said I spoke too fast. And I said, yeah, I'd suck as a speaker. And now I've done 2 TEDx's. You guys, live your life. Stop listening to everybody else. Screw it. Listen to God. Listen to the Creator. Listen to your inner wisdom and take that freaking step. Life is short, even if you live a long time. And I don't know about any of you listening, but I truly want to live my best life. And my best life is helping you also live yours.
That's right. Very powerful. Now, let's talk a little bit about health and wellness. And so essentially, you've done a triathlon before, and I'm training for my first triathlon in 2026. Mind you, I was coming off a knee injury, ran a 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon with the guidance of my personal trainer, Chelsea Denlinger, and also my faith in the community and family and friends. Grateful for each and every one of you. Now, tell us a little bit more about triathlon and your experience with it.
Yeah, so after I got out, so I competed even at a pretty high level after college. just because, I was really fit and I was doing races. And I actually even competed in Europe when I was in college as well. So I continued at a high level, as far as competition like that till I was like 23, 24, 25. I started getting in, go figure, into short sprint triathlons and then longer triathlons and ultimately marathons. I even trained for an ultra marathon, ran the highest marathon in the United States. It's in Colorado, by the way. So I've done all those things. I've even helped people, train a little bit in these as well, because PT by trade, did some personal training on the side as well. And I've worked with a lot of different athletes. And I'll say this about triathlons because I've done, different sports. I've ran in different capacities, as I mentioned. And what I love about triathlons is the dynamicy of the human capacity by exploring all three components. Because I'm not a great swimmer, for instance, so it took me a lot to actually get into that. It really hones in the capacity in all levels of kind of all requirements and coordination of all kinds of sports. So I really loved that challenge. And it also was a different challenge because training is very different. It's not just like you're getting ready for a race, you run. And by the way, I don't believe in just running for running a race. By the way, that's kind of a side note because cross training is needed. You can get injured. There's a lot of things on that. But I will say definitely in a triathlon, you're training in so many different capacities because you have three different components. I remember the first triathlon I did, Gigi, it was just a sprint triathlon and I was still very fit at the time. So I didn't train for this, like the swim part, because it was only a quarter mile. My stroke was so bad, you guys. I was in the last 10% coming out of the water. The boat actually stopped and asked if I was okay because I looked like I was drowning. That's how bad I was as a swimmer. My first triathlon. And get this, I was the last 10% to come out of the water, and I was in the top 5 to finish the long-term triathlon, right? So the bike and the run were my kind of my sweet spot. But as I started growing in the triathlon, I appreciated all components. And I'm going to say this about triathlons that is a little bit different than just running in of itself. It hit me at a deeper level of soul, because it challenged me in parts of sports that weren't my repertoire, right? So challenging yourself physically to your limit, marathons do that too, Gigi, really tests your soul more than anything else, because you get to this point that you're just broken physically. You have to rely on your spirit more than mindset. You really have to rely on your spirit to move you to that finish line. Triathlons are really unique because you're not only getting to that point of being tanked, but often you're also the psychology of maybe not being strong in one of the three components as well as you are in the others. So it's that additional mental component, it's that additional physical capacity, because it's testing you in three components of sport versus one. So I really love triathlons. In some ways, I find that you can actually prevent injury more with doing triathlons, because the training, you're not just doing high impact running the whole time. You're training bike, you're training water. You're actually, if you do it right, you guys, I'm gonna say, if you do it right, I've helped people train in triathlons, you can have less injury than if you're just training for like a marathon, because you're just doing high impact running. Again, I don't train that way for marathons. I do water running and some other things too, because you just get into injury if you end up just doing running only. But my point is I do like triathlons for that. It's still competitive. It breaks you in different ways. It challenges you in different sports that you're not competitive or not as competitive or prowess in. I loved it. And I think it's a great place to meet amazing people, because a lot of leaders, high performers wanting to challenge themselves, you meet a great community of people. So I love triathlons for that reason as well. I met some of the greatest people there. I met great people at marathons. I went to a training camp for ultra marathoners. They're some of the most enlightened, spiritual people I know, because they've been through brokenness of running 100 miles, so there's something to tap into the physical spirit of yourself, and triathlons definitely do that. In anything where you're pushing yourself to capacity, but there is a uniqueness about triathlons that I really, really enjoyed when I was doing them more consistently. I haven't done one for a little bit of time, but they're really great. And I think it's just, whenever you challenge yourself physically, you guys, we know this, there's huge correlations to that, right? It helps optimize your mental edge. It helps optimize your soul edge, and vice versa, just because you're tapping to something that's breaking you and you have to find the bandwidth to move forward. So I think they're great. I love triathlons. I think it gives us so much energy as well, in prowess and confidence for the work we do as leaders and business leaders, Gigi. So I'm a big advocate, whether you want to compete in triathlons or just get really physical and good at something, I think it's going to help you and correlate to really being profound in other areas of your life. So I'm a big component of doing things like that.
That's right. Incredible. And you mentioned 100 miles. Now, I wasn't expecting to do anything in between prior to the triathlon in 2026. However, God literally has now led me to do 100 miles, and this is 100 miles for Marty. This is an individual's father who has passed away due to cancer. And so, like my good friend says, Gee, just because you understand the cause. That's right. I do understand the cause. So 100 miles, absolutely. I'll take it. And that's done. It has to be done within 24 hours.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, that's intense, you guys. So, and I'll say this. So when I train for an ultra, so I've trained for all of them, the triathlon, sprint to half marathons to the highest marathon ever, like I said, I did in Colorado, to training for an ultra. And you guys, I'm going to say this, running 100 miles is truly, they say this all the time. It's a food race with running in between. You're not only physically having to make sure that you're putting enough electrolytes, calories in, because if you get into ketoacidosis or depletion and your body starts eating itself, because people have to, you just crash and you literally can't continue. So having the right physical structure of food and also your physical pacing, hopefully that you've trained enough so you know what cadence and how much energy you're putting in and out, and how much food you need to get put in. There's definitely like a science to it. So just from a physical state, from your pace that you're setting to the food you're putting in, to the electrolytes you're putting into the hydration, is just a whole master's degree. And I remember when I was training for it, I mean, it was very humbling. But when you're, man, you guys, you are so spiritually broken. A lot of people crawl to the finish line, like you start losing coordination. Sometimes you hallucinate. You guys, to be moving for 24 hours straight, not only are you sleep deprived, but you're food deprived, you're caloric deprived, your muscles are getting dehydrated, you're getting contractions. Like, you guys, I've seen grown men cry when they sit down at the fire and then they just stop because it just feels so good to sit down, and they're just weeping. Like, it breaks you. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, it's an intense, but it's soul wrenching, but it's soul healing, because it's only you and God. There comes a point where you're like, I'm not walking or running anymore. God, you have totally taken over and you're walking and running for me. And
Wow.
it's just a whole lot, you guys, I will say that it's just a whole, I will say it's just like as a public speaker, podcasts, keynotes, breakout sessions are over here, TEDx is over here. Like, it's just a whole different ball of wax. Same thing with any type of physical thing you're doing to push yourself, triathlons, half marathons, ultras, they're over here. I will say that it's just, it's hard to explain until you've trained for one or done, like, just where it takes you physically, emotionally, spiritually is a whole nother level, where I have to tell you, I think most people would say that have ever finished one, that it wasn't them finishing it. And I actually mean that, you guys, like, that God literally like came down with his hand and moves your legs. There's such a tenacity with that, and you literally see God. Like, there's points where, like, because you're so broken, you have no choice but to hand it over and surrender because you're done. Like, there comes a point that even the last 5 months, you think only 5 miles, well, you just ran in five. Like, it's gut wrenching, but it's probably one of the most beautiful experiences that you can also put yourself through. And my thought process is, I remember the guy that does the Leadville Ultra that's in Colorado. He started it there. It's like a mining town. He's not, like, now in his 70s, and he started it. And he ran obviously the several hundreds of miles there when he started the whole organization. Now it's the Leadville 100, and it's known across the world. But he said, you guys, trust me, when you can finish 100 miles, you will always be able to go back to that. So when you're struggling in life, you can always say, if I can run 100 miles, by God, I can get through this. And you guys, there is something to that. Like, it's like a mental thing. Like, you're able to just say, like, wow, I've done this. How can I not do this? There is something to, because I've been an athlete a long time, you guys, but there's research on this. There's something about pushing your body to its limit that allows you, when you're struggling with something in business, you're like, can I do this? I don't know if I can get through this. Oh, you guys, we've all been there. You guys, I can tell you how much my credit score has been up and down in 20 years. I can't tell you how much, like, I've like had negative bank accounts when I first started. Like, listen, it breaks you, right? Well, that's what physical sport does. And I have to tell you, because of my athletic background, I felt like I had an edge when I would hit walls with business where it wasn't going well, and it allowed me to settle in and keep moving because I had increased my capacity by doing physical things that were hard. And I just felt this innate sense of confidence and girth to keep going. So there's something really beautiful about that. And I encourage everyone, you guys don't have to run an ultra. It's a beautiful and horrible and ultimate great and just, extraordinary experience, but you don't have to do something like that. You guys, maybe some of you, are sick right now. Maybe you have chronic disease. What if you just, your goal was to run for a mile? Maybe you've never done that. I've worked with people that I've come from debilitating diseases. I've seen people in hospitals that it's scary, but I've also seen them from that space, Gigi, come back to physical health and be able to move again and walk again and breathe again. This human machine that God made us is so freaking brilliant. The most famous inventors of all time, you guys, the Wright brothers, Thomas Edison, just all the bigwigs that guess what they studied before they ever extrapolated their invention? The human body. Because the human body is the most amazing machine ever made. And when you know how to tap into its capacity, it can run 100 miles, Gigi. It can take on all these trials that happen with business that are inevitably going to come to you. And I'm such a big believer in that, you guys. You have so much more capacity that you probably touch 10% of it. And this is how I get into my clients and their flow state and moving it through. Like it is so beautiful if you guys get that. And when you do stuff like this that you're doing, Gigi, you start getting it. You're like, oh my gosh, that my body can handle this. And I keep going. It feels so good to get your body to that point of fitness and litheness, like it does, right? And it just does something to your mental health. It moves you to do things far greater than people that don't do things like this. And people say that to me all the time, like, how do you do some of the things you do? And how do you get through some of those trials, Jennifer? I remember I lost my sister 6 weeks before I had a summit, and we didn't even know if we were going to sell enough tickets. And like, how are you doing this because I've learned how to train this ahead of time. Because I've learned how to tap into my genius, just like you can at any given moment, even during when the back is against the wall, you guys. When you got to close the back door, you have nowhere to go but forward, right? And through, right? You got to go through the crud. But when you do physical hard stuff, you guys, like, listen, I can give you a bunch of frameworks in my coaching, and I have a lot of powerful stuff, but I'm telling you, if you can't afford anything but just buying a pair of freaking $100 tennis shoes and start running, I guarantee you're going to increase some capacities there in your ability to withhold things and withstand things during hard times and transition and change. So that's what I would give you for sure.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I love how you talk about challenges, and it's those challenges that make you stronger. And so face it and give it to him. Give it to him.
Yeah.
You're not alone. One of my favorite verses is Joshua 1:9. It says, haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid or discouraged, for your Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Therefore, again, you're not alone. Now, Jennifer, do you have any last words for the audience?
Oh, man. I would say this: be a person of character and a person of integrity that's aligned with who you really are and the goodness you want to give to the world. And if you can set that barometer at the beginning of the day and every choice you make is aligned with that, you're doing a good job. You guys, decisions, navigations of hard stuff is really that simple. Are you being who you really are with integrity and character, staying aligned with the goodness you want to give to the world? And if that's true, you guys, life can get really easy with the decisions and navigations you have. So go after it. Be the leader that you are. Know that there's more out there that's on your side than not, and reach out to us because that's what we're here for.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Now, where can the audience find you?
Yep. So I'm active most on LinkedIn and Instagram. So on LinkedIn, it's Jennifer-Watson. There's Jen, it's Jenn. There's a lot of Jennifer Watsons on LinkedIn. So Jen-Watson. And on Instagram, it's the Jennifer Watson. But definitely check out my website. It's www.jenn-watson.com. I answer all my DMs. I connect with you guys, and I'm here to support you. So if you have any questions after this podcast, you want to look at opportunities to get support by me, I'm absolutely open to conversations with you.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Jennifer on all of her social media platforms, including her website. And Jennifer, again, thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.